Hi guys, welcome to Cryptids Canada, episode 9. I'm still in quarantine. How about you guys? I hope you're staying safe. I'm in my pajamas still. Don't get me wrong, I changed my pajamas. But I'm just taking advantage of this. Might as well enjoy myself at home if I have to be here. So, anyways, this next email was quite good. It's called Creature in the Barn. And I'm assuming it's a young girl. I don't know why. But anyways, she or he writes, please do not give out my name. Well, you know that's not a problem. I totally respect that. Then she writes, this is very hard to do because my family has threatened me with psychiatric treatment if I continue to keep talking about this. My fear is that someone will get hurt and I will feel responsible. Just so you know, I have written to other places, but they have never read my story. I'm thinking they didn't believe me. I'm hoping that you will. Well, that goes without saying because I do believe you. Then she goes on, or he goes on to say, I am 17 now, but I was 14 when all this happened. We live on a farm in the Midwest. I don't want to say where, out of fear that someone will put two and two together and figure out who I am. So at that time, as I said, I was 14. We had a small farm with lots of chickens, a couple of pigs, goats, and a few horses. We all loved to ride. I had just gotten my horse the year before, so my parents thought it was important I spend as much time with him as I could. So after homework, I had to clean the barn and help with the other animals. But by that time of the day, everyone else was pretty much done with their chores, so I was always alone, which I preferred also. I could also sneak out for a cigarette on the far side of the barn without anyone seeing me. So I began to notice that our barn cats were not as friendly or as hungry as usual. I would normally be tripping on the cats when I went into the barn to feed them. They were always wanting food and always wanting affection. But as I said, there were fewer and fewer. But I really didn't think too much about it at the time. So one night I was in the barn, spending some time with my horse, but nothing I did would calm him down. He was huffing and stomping and pacing back and forth. I decided to sneak outside for a smoke, and while I was outside, I kind of felt the barn rumble a little, which sort of sounded like somebody was throwing around bales of hay in the loft. I butted out my smoke in case it was my dad. I honestly felt fear right then, but I didn't know why. I went back in the barn, and my horse was even more restless. The other two were being skittish as well. I shut the lights and went to the house. I recall I spoke to my parents about it when I went in, and my dad said that they were fine earlier, so I just went to my room for the rest of the night. Our house was built on a little bit of a hill, so it overlooked the property, and my bedroom window faced the barn. I was sitting at my desk doing my eyebrows when something outside caught my attention. I had to shut my light out to see better, and I thought I saw something really big running from the barn and into the woods. It looked like it was carrying something in its arms. Yes, I said arms. It was on 2 feet, and it was very tall. I yelled down to my dad that I thought I saw a man running from the barn and into the woods. He yelled back, uh-huh. I just shook it off and I went to bed. The next morning, before I was due to wake up for school, my dad yelled up and told me to come downstairs. So I did, and he asked me to tell him exactly what I had seen. I explained everything, and he just stared at me like I was an idiot. He shook his head and walked away. I asked Mom what was wrong, and she said one of the 6-month-old pigs was missing. And I reminded her I saw something running from the barn, and it was carrying something. She told me those pigs weighed like 130 pounds, roughly, and nothing would be carrying them. But I knew what I saw. I didn't know it was a pig for sure. I went to school and forgot all about it. At dinner, my dad was really quiet as usual, but I remembered about the pig, so I asked if he found out anything yet, and he shook his head. Every year we bought 2 pigs and raised them up to be slaughtered in the spring. So this was a loss for our farm. I understood his silence. So I asked if there was anything extra that needed to be done in the barn. He just shook his head again, which shocked me because normally I had to be reminded to go out and do my chores, and any other time that would have made Dad happy. So I helped with the dishes, which I never did as well, and Mom was happy. And then I went out to the barn. It was the same as the night before. The cats were only coming out to get fed a couple at a time instead of 5 or 6. The horses were a little calmer, though, so that was good. I did what I needed to do, and then I went out for my cigarette. I heard a loud bang again, the same as I heard the night before. This time, I went in right away. I definitely heard footsteps from the hayloft. Whatever it was weighed a lot, because even my dad, who was around 200 pounds, didn't make that much noise when he was up there. The horses were starting to snort and dance like they were the night before. I snuck out and I made sure to turn on the floodlights around the barn, and I shut the doors behind me so whatever it was that was in there was trapped. I ran into the house to tell my dad that I thought I heard something in the loft. He said he was in the loft earlier and there was nothing up there. He asked if I shut the doors, and I said yes, and he said everything would be fine then. I had a gut feeling, so I went to my room and I sat in the dark, looking out my window. I thought about the night before. How had it gotten out with a pig? 'Cause I had shut all the doors as well. I didn't know, but I sat and I waited. It was less than a half an hour, and I saw the hayloft door slide all the way open. And then I saw a pig fall from the second floor. It landed with a thud, so I knew it was already dead. And then a nightmare followed it. A giant dog leapt out of the door and landed on 4 legs. And then it looked right up at me with its yellow eyes and stood up on 2 legs. It looked like they were dog's legs. It snarled at me, showing me the longest teeth I had ever seen. It leaned down and picked up the pig, and that's when I saw its hands. Not paws, they were hands. And they had long, sharp-looking nails that were as black as coal. I remember it had a mane like a lion, and it was really big across the chest, and its arms were rippled with muscles. Its body was covered in light and dark brown patches of hair, except for its chest that had pecs and nipples like a man. It growled at me again and then took off running towards the woods. I screamed for my dad that I had just saw it steal another pig. So he went to run out, and I begged him to take a gun with him. We went out together, and sure enough, the second pig was gone as well. Dad had a fit like I'd never seen before. He was screaming at me that he wanted the truth. I told him over and over what I heard and saw the last 2 nights. He could not or would not believe me. I think my mom was coming around. I know my cousin believed me because we found prints, but the whole family had their doubts, to be honest. If I hadn't seen it, I would have had my doubts too. I tried everything to get them to believe me until they said just leave it alone or they would have me committed. And then in brackets it says, do they still do that anymore? As far as I know, that thing didn't come back again. I know because the cats are back to normal and so are the horses. My dad still says very little to me, but that is on him. I've done all I could to get him to believe me, and if he chooses not to, well, I'll be off to college this year, and that I'm fine with. no name in the Midwest. Wow. See? Isn't that a shame? The whole family seems to be against this person, and all they're doing is trying to tell their story. I believe you, and I'm sure everybody listening to this story will believe you. My goodness. Okay, well, on to the second one. So the second story is written by a police officer, and it starts by saying, "First, I have never told anybody about this sighting until this year. I worked for the Durham Regional Police and have since 1979. I was going moose hunting and my friend was driving. We had been on the road about 8 to 10 hours going to Ignis, Ontario. We were about 100 miles west of Cochrane, Ontario on the Trans-Canada Highway. This area has bush cut back some 30 to 40 yards on each side of the road when I noticed an animal coming up out of the north side of the ditch. It was running across a 2-lane highway. We were about 100 yards away and moving up fast as we were driving between 65 to 75 miles per hour. The animal ran across the road on 2 legs, and we were about 20 yards away. By the time it crossed the road, my friend turned to me and said, 'What the hell was that?' I said, 'You don't know what that was? It was a Sasquatch, a Bigfoot.' He turned to me and said it was not. I'm not going to have people calling me nuts. So I said, 'Okay, well, what was it?' He said it was a man in a fur suit. We argued about this for a few minutes. Even though we were about 100 miles away from the nearest town, we never said another thing about it until this year. And he still says he never seen anything. Now let me describe this animal to you. It was about 6 or 7 feet tall, very long and muscular arms that went down to its knees. It was covered in fur that reminded him of moose hair. He also says that he believed it was a female because it had breasts that were lower to its chest area. It had heavy legs and a buttocks and was 300 to 400 pounds. It did turn and look in my direction as we were driving a Chevy 4x4. It looked like it was as tall, if not a bit taller, than the cab of the truck. It only took about 5 or 6 steps to cross a 2-lane highway and down into the ditch that we were passing. This was at night between 7 and 10 p.m. So that was by a police officer who I believe, just like everybody else, is a very credible witness. And wow, how frustrating is that you are together, but your friend is so caught up in what everybody thinks that he just denies the whole thing happening. But I understand it too, because, if you've been ridiculed, it makes you a little bit paranoid to want to come forward. I'm one of these free-spirited types. I've been through it, but I say it like it is. My story is an open book. So anyways, guys, that's it for tonight. So stay happy, stay safe, and remember, we are all in this together. I'll see you in a couple of days. Bye-bye for now.